So as Jungwon told you, my name is Thomas King. I'm the program director for Rainmaking and Startup Bootcamp here in Seoul. I hope everyone will be okay with me doing this conversation in English. I hope you can all understand. So Rainmaking is a global venture studio, and Startup Bootcamp is the brand under which we operate all our startup acceleration programs. Now, what we do as a venture studio is a little bit different because we actually partner with large corporations and work with them to build startups from the ground up that address a particular opportunity area that they have identified. And the reason is the reason that we do things this way is because corporates realize now that they find it very difficult to innovate internally to address opportunity areas within their business. So yeah, we've worked with over 100 of the Fortune 500, and we work with these companies in various capacities. We build startups with them. We co-invest into those startups so that we share the risk with those corporates. And we also run startup programs in partnership with these corporates, usually to address a particular challenge that they're facing. So one of the areas where we've done many programs is in the logistics space. These days, many large companies around the world are very interested in establishing resilience within their supply chains. Clearly, the corporates these days have a great focus on their ESG objectives. So we also work with them to find startups that can help them succeed with their ESG objectives, and then we also work with them to run proof of concept programs. So we help them find startups, and then we help them develop proof of concept with those startups, so that hopefully they can establish some sort of successful partnership, or invest into those startups, or acquire them for their technology. So here in Korea, under the Startup Bootcamp brand, we work with KISED, the Korean government agency. I'm sure you're all very familiar with. We've been running the Global Startup Accelerator program for 2.5 years now, and the other program that we're now running in Korea is to help Singaporean startups expand into the Korean market. Singapore, as a technology and logistics hub, has a lot of advanced technology startups, and actually Korea is a very good fit for these kind of startups because they can find the appropriate customers here. Singaporean startups, you might think that they'd be better off in Southeast Asia, which these days tend to be higher growth markets. But actually, it's very hard for these companies to deploy such advanced technologies in Southeast Asia because their customers there are just not ready to adopt such advanced technologies, whereas this is absolutely not an issue in Korea. So this program is part of sort of like a global vision that we have as a global startup accelerator to build a network around the world that startups can plug into and expand into new markets. So these are the places where we currently operate programs and help startups expand into. And we're continuously adding new cities. So if any of these markets are of interest to you, my contact details will come up at the end, and please do reach out. So the team at Penn Ventures asked me to share some tips about succeeding in global markets, and I guess so to make sure that I don't repeat all of the great advice that Gino just gave you, I'll focus on some of the things that perhaps mistakes that startups should avoid when they're thinking about expanding into global markets. So one thing that we've seen here in Korea is that oftentimes founders will have a personal dream about expanding into a particular market without really understanding that market and the macro conditions within it. And this can lead to, attempting to expand into a market that's not really a good fit for your startup. And as many of you will know, these are the types of things that kill a startup, right? Because you have limited time, you have limited capital, you have limited resources. So if you commit these valuable resources to a misguided effort, that actually has the potential to be fatal. So you really have to understand the market you're trying to enter and whether or not your business really has any right to be going into that market. To give you an example about the Korean market, we strongly discourage junior, at least early stage B2C startups trying to enter into the Korean market. That's because they're just going to find it very difficult to compete with Korean B2C startups because or B2C businesses, because Korean B2C businesses are like very robust, they're very good at what they do, and they're highly tailored towards the Korean consumer. So for an early stage startup, they're just not going to be able to develop the understanding necessary to compete in this market. So you guys need to think about that in terms of your own startups and the markets that you're looking into. And then, so beyond this, you really need to be realistic about the resources you have and whether or not your startup is actually ready to undertake an expansion effort. So if you are a small team and you as a founder are planning to be heavily involved in your market expansion effort, you need to make sure that either you have the team that has the responsibility and the authority to lead that effort, or it's going to be extremely difficult for you. As a founder, you have a limited time, you have limited resources, and it's without a proper team in place, it can be very difficult to properly expand. Expanding into new markets often takes much longer than people anticipate. So you also need to be prepared to plan beyond any internationalization programs that you are participating in. So, if it's a 3-month program, if it's a 6-month program, what plans do you have in place so that you can stay in that market and continue to try and crack it? Because usually, 3 to 6 months in business terms, it's a very short amount of time. If you think you're going to go into a new market and establish traction in that shorter period of time, perhaps you'll get lucky, and I sincerely hope you do. But realistically, it's going to take longer than this, and you should plan for that. And then once you are in a new market overseas, you need to work to build alliances in that market, and you need to work with specialists straight away. So when I say alliances, there will be other Korean entrepreneurs that have gone before you into the markets that you want to go into, and usually they will be quite willing to help you because they'll understand the challenges that you're facing, and you're all in it together, so that everyone, at least you will find some people who are kind of like willing to help you and interested in establishing a community so that entrepreneurs can continue to succeed in that market. So that's, look out for other Korean entrepreneurs, go to the Korean embassy, because the Korean embassy will be engaged with doing things like speaking to large corporations within that market, and they might be able to make introductions for you. They might be able to introduce you to investors. These are like 2 easy ways that you can start to establish a network in a new market very quickly versus trying to do everything yourself, which you can do, but it's just extremely difficult. And then the other thing I just will mention finally is work with specialists. Again, don't be naive, be realistic. You need people within your team who have undertaken a expansion effort before, if you can. Okay, I understand that not everyone can hire, absolutely every type of employee that they want. We all have limited capital, but if you can, try to work with people, either try to hire people on your team that have undertaken expansion into new markets before, or find someone in that new market who has helped businesses enter that market before. They'll be very well connected. That's kind of this type of employee or consultant, that's their job, and they can help you, again, shorten that time to finding traction and succeeding in a new market. So those are sort of the three categories that I wanted to share with you today. My contact details are here. As I said, we run programs helping startups go all over the world. So if that's something that's of interest to you, do get in touch, and we'll see if there's any scope for us to do something together. So thanks very much. Thanks for having me.